Well, hello everyone, how are we doing? I am Slow Rider, this is my world, welcome. Yeah, I'm going to talk to you today about Formula 1, because I quite like Formula 1, as you may have noticed from previous videos. And the weekend just gone, we had the Belgian Grand Prix, which was different. I think that's the most polite way to put it. Different. I sure as hell wouldn't have wanted to pay to go there. I would love to just say you all know what the hell I'm going on about, but you might not. So, very broadly, over the race weekend, the Saturday and the Sunday were very wet. On Saturday we had qualifying, and on one of the fastest corners on the circuit, which is a partially blind turn, there was an accident. And it was entirely predictable. Entirely predictable. To which a lot of drivers, you know, kind of said it was obviously going to happen. It was a bit silly going out qualifying in that. I can't disagree with them, to be honest. But the organisers, not the stewards, the organisers, the race director and his gang, they didn't learn from this. I'm sorry they didn't. Those of you who know this, what I'm getting to, yeah, they didn't learn. So, race day comes along and it's just as wet, if not more so. And most of it, to be fair, comes down not long before the start of the race, as I understand it, but, you know, it happens. So, the race gets delayed by half an hour. It was supposed to start at 3 o'clock local time. It's scheduled to start at 3:30 local time. These are important times, very important times. At 3:30, they decide they're going to do the formation lap, and they're going to sit behind the safety car because it's not entirely sure whether it's safe to go around on their own. I mean, they're Formula 1 drivers. I don't know why that anyone would think that they can't drive a Formula 1 car safely on a formation lap, but, you know, I suppose people have gone off on formation laps before, so maybe that's what they were thinking. Anyway, they get to the end of the first lap and no, they'll go around again. They'll go around again because they're not sure. They want to get some feedback. Okay, fair enough. At the end of the second lap, they pull into the pits. It's too wet. They can't race. Well, okay, fair enough. So they all go into the pits and they all sit around for best part of 3 hours. 6:15 local time. Sorry, 6:05 local time. The organisers announced that they think there's a gap in the rain, a gap in the weather they can make use of. So they're going to start the race. They're going to start the race, 10-minute warning, 6:15. Sure enough, at 6:15, the safety car leads all the cars out of the pits and takes them for 2 complete circuits of the track before the race director says, no, still too wet, can't do it. Brings them all back into the pits. And then, as I understand it, a few minutes later, he says, oh, that's it, we can't do any more. Race over. Half points for everyone. Well, not for everyone. The top 10. Because they're the only ones who get points. And they got a lot of stick for this. A lot of stick. Some of it coming from the drivers. A lot of them embarrassed they're getting points for basically nothing. And one in particular who's kind of... What a joke. Why are we here? Now, I don't normally agree with the politics of said driver, Mr. Hamilton. Don't normally. But he was spot on this time. Caught part of a live stream yesterday from a Mark Priestley, I think his name is. He used to work for McLaren, he doesn't anymore. And he basically said the same thing. He said, we all know why they did 2 laps. We all know why they did 2 laps. So let me run you through it. The timings. The timings are very important. Why are the timings important? Because once a race has started, it has 3 hours to get completed. The formation lap is included in the race time. So the start of the formation lap is the start of the race. So at 2:30, that 3-hour clock starts. But remember, they came into the pits, they didn't start the race. So the organisers and the race director decide, force majeure, this 3-hour limit doesn't apply. They just arbitrarily decide it. Doesn't apply. But that's where the curiousness starts up. They say they spot a weather gap at 6:05, start 6:15, and they've completed the 2 laps before 6:30. 6:30 being the end of the 3 hours. Curious, isn't it? Although they did say they'd have a maximum of an hour's race because, you know, if it had actually gone to length, which I think is smokescreen, to be honest, but the reason it would have been an hour rather than the 2-hour race limit and the 3-hour actual overall time limit was because the light would fade. It'd be too late in the evening. It's Belgium, you know, at this time of year. But the second important rule, and this is where the 2 laps comes in. There is a rule that says you only get full points if you complete more than 75% of the race. If you complete less than 75% of the race, you get half points, provided that the race lasts at least 2 laps. If it lasts less than 2 laps, it isn't a race. It doesn't count. So my thoughts here are, there's a lot of money involved in Formula 1. Which is what Lewis Hamilton basically said, there were contracts, there's money, etc. Yeah, there's a lot of money. And some of that money is based on races completed. The current race director and the current owners, as I see it, don't think of this as a sport. They think of this as a business, as an entertainment. And I wouldn't mind betting there's some clause in the ticket contract, in the sort of terms of sale of the tickets, that says that if a race happens, they can't get their money back. The people who attended. I wouldn't mind betting that that's in there. I'd have to check my tickets in order to find that out. The reason that they put the red flag out at the end of the 2 laps was because they said it was for safety. It was too wet. It was as wet out there, visually as wet out there, at the point they started, as it was when they initially went out at 3:30 local time. It was still raining. It wasn't going to clear up. There was no way it was going to clear up. So I think they've waited as long as they possibly can, and they've seen that it's just not going to clear up. There might have been a weather forecast that said, oh, we know it will clear up. It's Spa, it has its own weather system. You can't predict. It's not that predictable. You can't predict it. Not like that. Everyone knows this. Everyone with half a brain who follows Formula 1 knows that you can't predict the weather at Spa that accurately. And the track takes a long time to clear up because of all the trees and such like it. The moisture just hangs in the air. The spray hangs in the air. So yeah, I think the race director and the organisers have seen that it's not going to clear up. So they left it as late as possible to make sure that they get the 2 laps in. They were probably looking at 5 minutes per lap or something. Had a couple of minutes for safety, yep. 6:15. Well, 6:17 I think it officially started. Or restarted, or whatever. They've worked it out. They've worked out that it will finish before 6:30, and they've thought, do you know what, that's the 3 hours. 6:30 is the 3 hours. We get this done, no one can argue. We had a race, it finished before the 3 hours. Job done. There are a lot of people that wonder why people like me watch Formula 1 anymore, and I'm really beginning to ask that question myself at times. There's some damn good racing at times. And I am kind of invested in it, you know. I've been watching it for years. I enjoy going down to Silverstone every year and going to other races where I can. But it's this sort of thing that I think, why am I doing it? Money's the reason I stopped paying much attention to football. It's beginning to be the reason that I'm not paying attention to Formula 1. Anyway, so that's basically the hoo-ha, and yeah, it's a joke. It really is a joke. They could have done the formation lap, started the race, got 2 laps done, then pulled everyone into the pits. No pretense about coming out again. If, you know, they get to 3 hours, you know, I'm sorry, the rules say. Now they've boxed themselves into a hole. Now they've got force majeure. What can't they do now? What rules can't they just ignore in the right circumstances? Strikes me that if you set the rules of a game or a sport, you should stick to those rules. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. Yeah, so basically the Formula 1 organisers messed up big time. I think they've shown their hand and what's important to them. It's not the sport. I'm going to be honest, I don't think the race director, a guy called Michael Massey, I don't think he's cut out for the job. He's made some very dubious decisions in his time. I know he inherited a job that he was always going to be worse than the last guy, because Charlie Whiting was actually pretty damn good. He had big shoes to fill. But he's made some awful decisions, and he can't do an interview for toffee. It's like on the end, someone's phoned him and said, this race, this has to go ahead, there's a lot of money in it. You've got to make sure it happens. Yeah, well. It's all done now. So, any of you guys into Formula 1? Or any other motorsport for that matter? I know motorbikes will be big on the agenda in a lot of places, but, you know. Do you agree with the decisions that were made? Do you think that it was right to start the race? Never mind, finish it. Anything else you disagree with me on? Leave it in the comments. I shall catch you in the next video. Ta-ta for now.